swap them out every few days. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, it looks like we're going live. I'll introduce our guest in just a moment. We're live. We're live. It's Matt Bailey, your national ambassador for the Scotch Port Whisky Society here. It's time for us to go live again. And as Mal always says, I just scratched my face. So no face touching, says Mal. As always, yes, I know. Really appreciate everyone tuning in, by the way, and being a part of the chat where we go live every single night here at the Society. Something for members to join in on, be a part of the community of, and have a few drams, discuss a few things. I'm actually just finishing off a Negroni, which has no whiskey in it whatsoever, but that's okay because it was a nice little aperitif to lead into where we're going with this tonight's chat. I'm just going to bring up all the streams to make sure it's all working nicely. I can see it's working on the group. I've got a few people commenting. Alex Lalos, good to see you, mate. And a few other places, which is great. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Matt Bailey. As I said before, I've said 3 times now, and it's time for me to introduce our guest, Matt Wooler, who is a regular occurrence, a regular feature on the channel. Someone who's been on a few times. He's back and booming. Before we dig into tonight, it's you work. I mean, you run your own show. You run Dramnation. You run your own sort of thing going on.
Yes,
which most people know about already. Which we've talked about before. Which you can mention again. But at the same time, you're. I like to say jack of all trades in some ways. You're quite comfortable in single malts. You're quite comfortable in bourbon. You're quite comfortable in rye.
Bourbons, yes.
Yes. Love the bourbons.
Bourbon.
No.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, and tonight is a chance for us to talk a bit about Distillery 53. And we've got some whiskey from Ila in front of us here, from a Distillery 53. Capped, nicely capped there. Good to see you. I'm going to grab some of the comments coming in, just to say hello to a few people here. Irina, Rob, oh, look at those people joining in. Great, thank you so much. Like I said, we're just making sure that everything's going gangbusters here. Great. Swimmingly. 53s would be my most purchased society code, says Mark Garraway. Yeah, really good point, Mark, and there's a good reason for that. It's because this distillery, Caol Ila Distillery, is often referred to as Mr. C. So when you travel around Ila, they often call it, have you been over to Mr. C? Have you gone to see Mr. C? And C standing for Mr. Consistent. It's a distillery that has such a large output, but also a consistent one. We'll talk a bit about the history of the distillery and some of the interesting things about it and how it gets that character in a moment. But what have we got tonight? What's on the menu tonight?
For me?
That was a question.
Oh, what's on the menu tonight?
Yeah,
Are you answering it or am I answering it?
You answer. Yeah. We've got 2 whiskeys in front of us.
Well, it was a bit of an idea I had. In fact, I got an idea about doing this quite often for other things, but it's along these lines. But I had an older bottle of Caol Ila 12-year-old.
Yep.
Unopened. It only got opened the other day to get some drams across to you.
Now, when you say it's quite old, when did you know when you picked up this bottle?
Probably about 6 years ago.
Yeah, right.
Yep. So, I mean, the packaging hasn't changed. It's still the same thing. You know, it hasn't changed around in regards to the way that is. Pretty iconic bottle. I mean, I can remember when we started to see this on the market here in Australia. Is that focusing? I don't know whether it's focusing or not. When it was coming out here in Australia, which I don't think it was that common pre-2010, 2011. It started, I think, pop up. Vintage Cellars was one of the first places. I don't recall ever seeing it at a place like Dan Murphy's. And it really took an interest as to what's this? What's Caol Ila? Blah, blah, blah.
And how do you even say it?
Yeah, exactly.
When it first pops up, you're like, Caol Ila. Yeah, cool. And you don't. That's why you don't. That's why it doesn't sell much as a single malt. It's like, how do you even say that distillery?
Of course, yes. And you look into it a little bit, and you see the history that it has with Diageo and the importance that it has with Diageo.
Yeah.
And obviously Johnny Walker and what it goes into and a heap of other things as well. But it's not often, and this isn't a comparison in any way. We're not comparing, like chalk and cheese here or anything like that. It's more the case of a lot of people, when they're thinking of coming over to society, they're not completely sure what's going on. They don't even necessarily realize it's cask strength or anything along those lines. And of course, because society doesn't necessarily talk about the distilleries in order to sort of protect the brands that exist, the pre-existing brands, and to let these things shine on their own accord, distillery gets a number versus a name. An agreement obviously made with all the distilleries.
Yep.
And quite often you'll be like, well, what does a Caol Ila taste like versus 53, a single cask 53? So why not actually go for the OB and then also go for the one of many that have been coming out. This one's a little bit older now, the 53, what is it, 53?
275, yeah. Well, we just released in the last outturn one of the festival 53s, 53.319. So we're almost 40, 50, almost 50 casks along since then. So it's a good output that we get from there.
And of course, normally with OB bottles that are OB being official bottlings, from distilleries, peated distilleries or Islay distilleries, the peat is extremely strong. Like it really comes through. And I think that partly comes down to the fact the whiskies are actually watered down the way they are. This is at 43%, the 12-year-old. It's watered down, and that allows for that smoke to come forward versus the higher oil content and higher alcohol content of a society. Quite often you're getting more meaty flavors. Of course, yes, it's peated. Yes, you're going to get those aspects, but it becomes a much more viscous thing with a lot more sort of characteristics to it.
It's funny you mention that, because it's sort of like this, when we talk about peating levels, obviously the one thing that a lot of whiskey drinkers somewhere along their journey like to refer to as the ppm, as the parts per million of how peated a whiskey is. And it's a measurement that is taken to determine how peaty a whiskey is. And Caol Ila is peated regularly to 30 to 35 parts per million. So it's not one of those crazy peating levels. Most distilleries are 1 or 2. Some distilleries are as high as 30. In this case, Ardbeg, I think, is 55, something like that. So like
around the 50s, yes.
Yeah, so you've got sort of those numbers. So it's definitely they call it the distillery, they call it a heavily peated whiskey, because by mainland standards it generally is. But I think that's a bit of a misnomer, and those numbers don't really mean anything, as we've discussed before.
Yeah,
where the cut is made, where the peating level's made, and where it's where the cut the measurement is made. Sorry, for that ppm. It's like, is it made at the spirit? Is it made at the actual peat?
When it's being dried, and I think that's more often than not, that's when it's done, isn't it? When at the before the beer is even made, it's doing it then. And so depending on what you're doing with the mash, and depending on how you're cooking that, and then of course depending on how you're distilling it, you can get heavily peated whiskies that don't come across very smoky at all.
But numbers don't really tell the full story. That's
absolutely not.
You can see a whiskey that's 200 ppm that doesn't taste 4 times as peaty as something that's 50.
Totally. So I poured mine out into measured drams, and of course I need to define so I don't mix these up, 2 different glasses, whereas you've gone for the same. So I'm using my old and rare glass. And then I'm using my Scotch Malt Whiskey Society glass. So they're varianted, so I'm not going to mix these ones up.
Okay, so what have you got in each? You got in that glass there, you've got the 43%.
Yeah, I've got the 43% Caol Ila 12.
Yep.
Now, when I give that a nose.
Steve Oates says, unpeated Caol Ila, discuss. Yeah, well, that's a really interesting point, Steve. It's one that I was gonna dig into a bit later on. But it is true that they do an unpeated run every year. So in fact, the year, I think that I can't recall exactly. I'm pretty sure it was in the 80s. It was in the 80s. It was actually around 82, I think. They started doing an unpeated run to supply for Highland blends. So it's a blending distillery. It's a distillery where most of the output goes into blends. So much so, and of course, the demand for unpeated blends at the time, which it is the same as it is now, just about, was extremely high. It was, we're talking brands like your Highland Queens and your J&B and whatever it was. There were the brands that Just Reading Brooks and Johnny Walker's and things that like where the spirit was being used in Highland blends to supply demand. So that's where the unpeated Caol Ila comes from. From the downturn, to survive the downturn of the 80s, they started blending. They started producing an unpeated style. I'm quite a fan of it. It's often quite sort of like light and sugary and lovely, and I think it has its time and place. It's even less consumed than normal Caol Ila single malt. There was a Stitchell Reserve a few years back, which was a 15-year-old. There was another one which is a 14-year-old, I think. So they do release some unpeated Caol Ila as single malt. But the one thing I always love about Caol Ila as a distillery discussion is that when I asked at the distillery when I was over there, I asked them what's the balance between what goes into single malt and what goes into blending. And the tour guide said we could stop selling our single malts tomorrow and it wouldn't make a single difference to our bottom line.
Mm.
So that, I mean, my joke before about no one buying Caol Ila as a single malt because first of all, they can't say the name. And second of all, because it's not known as a single malt even now. I mean, it is in circles like we are in now and, and stuff, but realistically, it's very rarely bottled as a single malt and even rarer bottled as a single cask single malt. Although for us, it's quite a lot of output, as you've seen, 300 we're up to 319 there. So that's 319 casks in 37 years or something. So it's a fair bit, but yeah. I hope that answers your question, Steve. It wasn't. I mean, have you had much unpeated Caol Ila?
No, I can't recall ever having it. I have had the unpeated Ardbeg, but I haven't had the unpeated Caol Ila.
No one liked Blasda. Let's be honest. No one liked Blasda. There's a reason they haven't done it again.
But it's no. I'd love to try it some stage if I can. But as far as tasting this, it's smoky and it's fruity, and it's quite mild. And I mean, I think that's one of the things it's always carried as well. It is always felt like it's the mildest of all the peated whiskies coming out of Islay.
Yeah, it's a very mild. But the thing, okay, so you got 9 operating distilleries in Islay at the moment. I'm willing to say so much so that if you put the core range expression of each of those 9 distilleries in front of me, I'm going to use myself as an example. I'd probably get them all confused. You wouldn't know which one is which. They'd all taste like great Islay whiskies to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only one I could pick out would be Caol Ila. I think there's a certain character and a certain to their spirit. There's a certain character of their spirit that is unmistakable.
Mm.
And it's consistently good. I can safely say I've never had a bad Caol Ila, which is, you can't really say that about many distilleries.
In reference to society bottlings?
Society casks? I mean, even core range. I mean, I've never had a core range where I've gone, that's a bad whiskey. I mean, it's sure, I've probably had some tremendously dodgy blends in my time, which contained Caol Ila in there somewhere. But I don't know if they did or not.
Well, that's the other thing, isn't it? They're still consistently doing sales to independent bottling as well. Something that a lot of distilleries are starting to, I guess, shut down in order to focus on their own stuff, protect their brands. Luckily, obviously, Society has agreements with most distilleries in order to actually gain casks. But Caol Ila is one of those ones that pop up quite regularly as other independent bottlers have put together.
Yeah, exactly. Let's have a nose of that 12.
Well, I've been having a sip. I'm ready.
I had a little sip. Yeah,
fruity.
It's been so long since I've had Caol Ila 12. I'll be honest. It's like it's one that I love. It's such a, like I say, it's almost foolproof. It's sweet. It's slightly peated.
I don't see it turn up very often at friends' places, or when people talk about Islay whiskies, they don't bring up Caol Ila, in the OB sort of range. I don't know whether it's just maybe a hard name for Aussies to pronounce, or packaging.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to packaging, brand. I mean, like I said, they don't spend any money or time on their brand. There's no sort of they don't market Caol Ila as a single malt.
No, and I don't think they have to. That's the other
No,
thing.
and that's what I'm saying. It's a blend. It's a distillery that mostly goes into blends.
It gives presence where presence is needed, to say, yes, our single malts are available, but our priority is obviously blending and what it's for.
Yeah.
No, but I think that's a pretty nice light whiskey. It has been some time since I've actually had the 12, and so I'm very happy to have opened that bottle after so long. Got a good reason to be opening it,
and it's opened up lovely as well. Like I said, I've had that in glass now 15 minutes, and it's opening up just nicely. And it's not really a side by side we're doing, but it's an opportunity for us to examine two very different expressions.
Yeah, well,
distillery.
Exactly. It's I guess can you use the term that society makes whiskey? I guess society makes whiskey once you've gotten your hands on it, you mature it, you convert it into the flavor that you want to a degree.
It's funny you say that. I mean, we more and more at the society we're feeling. I keep bumping my stand. Sorry. New setup. We're more and more filling from new make.
Right.
The casks. So it's like we're sourcing direct spirit into wood, so we're controlling that wood policy from start to finish, which is really exciting because it means that we can sort of mess around with this stuff a bit and have a bit of fun with it.
In your own warehouses most of the time as well. So it's not like
pretty much exclusively. Yeah. Well, the rare exception. Yeah. I'll give some people watching right now. There's quite a few people on right now, which is great. And I'll give some context to the history of the distillery. So 1846, Hector Henderson built it all. Between 1846 and 1927, all sorts of tumultuous times. It was quite a small distillery, though, in that time. Well, not that small, smaller than it is now anyway. And it ran continuously from 1927 to 1972. So 1927 to 1972. Ran continuously. That is a mark of consistency. And like I said, and then even up to 72, it only had a short closure before, but reopening in time for the 80s whilst the rest of the whiskey industry was going down, they were still producing for a lot of the, like I say, Highland blends. All the casks even today are still kept on the mainland as well. It is not a distillery that keeps casks on hand. It is purely for it's a distillation facility, not a maturation one, if you like. And in 1972, it was upgraded from 2 to 6 pairs of stills. So had a significant upgrade, and today it has an output of about 6.5 million liters a year, a capacity of 6.5 million, which is a lot for an Islay distillery. I mean, it's like that's 20-fold Kilhoman kind of numbers, and so it's a big distillery, like I say, and a lot of it goes into the likes of Johnny Walker, and a lot of it goes into the likes of other blends, but bits and bobs into single malt, and even smaller bits and bobs into single cask society approved single malts.
Well, I've just popped over to the Gores in Effect.
Yeah, so just to give everyone some context, 53,275 is a bottling from a while ago called Gores in Effect. The camera's picking that up. There's a 10-year-old in the peated category, one stroke off being heavily peated, and I can see why on the taste on this. The tasting note on the front says, a massive and hyper pure peat monster, full of embrocations, invigorating sea air, and a boisterous and lively mineral medical ballet. Refill Hoggy.
Well, that the standout for this is the finish. The finish is ridiculous, and it's sort of like it's all meaty and juicy on the front, but it's spicy and it's mineralized. And I could go upstairs and get some Elastoplast and just sniff that, and I reckon that'll be pretty close to what I'm or lick it. That's pretty much what I'm tasting here. It's sort of like old workers' canvas or old tent canvas type of things.
You're right about the what do you call it? The finish. The finish is just a beast, isn't it? It just keeps going and going.
What's the ABV?
59.9.
59.9.
Right up there.
Yep, that is definitely giving my throat a workout.
There's a great question that's just come in. I want to jump on here from James Finnegan. He says the smoke comes from burning the peat. Why then is a whiskey smoky and not peaty? Well, James, there's a few reasons for that, and that's mostly to do with the different phenols that the spirit has within, and that might be things like phenol itself, guaiacol, cresol, etc., things like that actually affect the overall makeup of that spirit and how it's made, and the barley choice and everything like that, and the yeast strain and everything like that. So that's why some whiskeys generally come through as smoky rather than peaty, and there's lots of different factors as to why. But I would always say that Caol Ila is a smoky whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
I'd always say that Lagavulin is a smoky whiskey.
Yep.
Whereas I'd say Ardbeg and Lafroig are peaty whiskies. So
peaty, boggy.
Boggy, and that comes down mostly the phenols and the cresol and guaiacol and all those kind of things that change the overall makeup of the spirit and the end result there.
I mean, it's the same with why you can look at something like Highland Park and the smoke that comes through on that. You don't get those boggy elements and stuff. It's a much lighter peated sort of product, but nonetheless, it's the method. It's also the peat they're using, depending on where it's coming from. Obviously, with Islay whiskies, they're just digging it straight out of the ground. But you look at that comparison to Islay peat versus mainland Scottish peat versus Australian peat, as an example. It's very, very different sort of stuff.
Australian peat's very dry. Got that very dry sort of dry earth kind of taste to it. Like that damp peat that you get out in Scotland.
So you definitely, if you had a blind tasting of these two together, you would definitely not mistaken the of OB versus the Society, the 53.
Mark Garraway asks, does the Society see many 53s that are not in the 8 to 12-year-old bourbon cask realm? Mark, yes. It comes in waves. Now, you've got to appreciate that different things come to maturation at different times. And those age statements are obviously how long it takes in wood to even get to us. So yes, it definitely takes some level of up and down with the production and release of such whiskies. Members who were members of the Society in, say, 2014, 2015 will remember there was a string, and I mean every outturn, there was at least an 18 to 22-year-old from Distillery 53 in almost every outturn. And they were older 53s, a lot of them sherried, a couple of wine casks, but a few bourbon casks as well, but a lot of them were sherried. So those were sort of, it comes in waves of both parcels of whiskey, what comes to maturation and when it's ready, and all sorts of things like that. Right now, we're getting a good string, like a long string, I'd say more than a year now, of a really good supply of 8 to 13-year-old casks. The 13-year-old being like the festival one that we just had this month. In fact, this is a bit of a preview here for you, Mark. Keep your eyes peeled in the July outturn. June hasn't even been released yet, but we're tentatively working on July. Keep an eye out on July outturn because there's an older 53 in there that you will probably want to keep an eye on, but I guarantee you will be hot property, I'm sorry to say, and not many to go around. And Darren Howie says, Caol Ila Standard 12 is a very approachable Islay peated whiskey. It was our entry point to Islay, having been knocked out cold by Lafroig and found it far easier to get into as an initial peated dram. We found it a great door opener. Now we love the variety of independent bottles. You know what? Darren's point is really is really like bang on there, isn't it? It's like it's such a gateway whiskey for those who are whiskey appreciators. It's often Caol Ila or Lagavulin 16 you hear is like, oh, that was my first peated whiskey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Lagavulin carries a lot of sweetness to it now. That it used to.
It didn't used to. That's right. Lagavulin 16 used to be a real
super dry and
rip roaring peated. Yeah, and
that was good. those days. I think
I need Durbridge here to answer this one, but I don't remember which year it was that Lagavulin stopped the heavily peated run off the top of my head.
93, 94, something like that.
I think it may have been as late as 95.
Yeah, somewhere around there, because we saw that we started to see that change in the stores, because you would one day go and buy a Lagavulin 16 and then go, yeah, this is like a bushfire in my mouth. It's fantastic.
Like 2010, 2011.
Yeah, and then a month later, 2 months later, go to a friend's place or something, and they've got a bottle and it's like, this is really sweet. What is going on? This is so different. Yeah. And then you'd come across another bottle and it'd be like, why is it really dry again? This is the way I remember it. And then over time it was sweet. And so it was very rare you ever saw that old dry flavor of the 50 parts per million, 53, 55 parts per million.
Yeah.
Peating level. I'm sure maybe if Simon McGorham is popped in, he would probably actually know the stat on that.
We see Simon pop in on the live most nights, so we'll see where he's at the moment. He might be on right now. I can't see everyone.
If he is, he can pipe up. He might know the stat on that with his history of Diageo. But no, it's this is up. Far out. This finish does not stop on this thing.
I remember tasting this for the first time, that Gauze on effect, and being like, this is a proper peat monster. Jason Robson says, Caol Ila has probably been one of my least favorite drams. I'm keen to explore to try and find one I like, though. Jason, I appreciate you keeping an open mind to it, honestly, because it's like, and I know this sounds tremendously on brand, but you are watching a society video. You've got to try 53. Just grab any 53 out of an outturn. It might change your mind on what you think about this distillery and about that kind of style of whiskey. I really do.
I'm a big 3-dot fan. A big that's
you and everyone else. So God, I wish we got more of them. Yeah.
But my problem is, it's like I went hunting today, as I was saying to you, in the stash for my society bottles and what 53s I might have. And meanwhile, going through, I'm like, where's the threes? Where's the threes? Where's the threes? And I only came across 1 3. And I'm like, have I drunk all these? And I have. I've drunk all my 3s out, which is a real pain because I know
there'll be more.
Yeah, but they've slowed down a little bit. But the ones I have found, the ones I did have in the cupboard, being one that came through just the other week, which is 53 317 Burial at Sea.
Oh, yeah. So show that one up again. There it is. Burials. Yeah, that was Malt of the Month in May. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Burial at Sea. Yes.
53.290 whiskey for shellfish people.
Oh, getting that focus.
Come on, find it.
Close now. Oh, okay. That whiskey, that 53. What's the code on it? Sorry.
290.
53.290. The whiskey for shellfish. That was the one from Whiskey Fair.
Yeah, I think it might have been. It was
a ripper.
Popular.
Ripper whiskey.
And popular.
That was a standout cask on the stand, and I didn't expect it to be. I mean, not that I didn't, but it was sort of like we had so many whiskeys on the stand at Sydney Whiskey Fair, the Oak Barrel Whiskey Fair, I should call it, last year. That was a true standout though, that one.
And 53.257.
Oh, restorative, relaxing, and refreshing. Yes, restorative. Restorative. I said it wrong 3 times. Yeah, they're very different 53s you got there. The Burial at Sea is quite heavy. It's quite like it's a heavy malt, that one.
Burial at Sea.
Yeah.
So that's a 10-year-old at 58%. Refill ex-bourbon.
Yeah.
Hogshead. The 257 is 54.9%. And that is a refill ex-bourbon. And then, of course, the 290 is a second fill.
Second fill HTMC, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Toasted.
Oh, those toasted casks were unbelievable.
8-year-old at 61%.
Yeah, though those HTMCs, for those following along, HTMC stands for heavy toast, medium char. They were, and they're almost like probably one of the newest cask treatments that is being used in Scotch whiskey now. We've seen recharred hogsheads. We've seen, of course, the what's the Dr. Jim Swan one called again?
Swan?
STC, the Shave Toast Rechar, the STC casks, and now we're seeing. See, we did get a string of first fill HTMCs through like 2 years ago, and they were great, but they were very, very toasty. Whereas these second fill ones have almost reached that perfect balance point, and that's a ripper of a cask you've nabbed there. Any 53s in June? Asked Rowan. You know what? That's a really good question. We're going to announce June soon. We'll announce June the week before, which is this Friday. I don't think there's any new 53s. We've still got 10 bottles of the 53.319 Back to the Suture. It's a festival release. If you haven't nabbed that already, the question is why not? And then there is a 53 in July, which I can't talk about just yet. But
you did.
Well, I did. I mentioned it. We've got an older 53 coming in July, but nothing more than that. And then
I've just noticed the new branding's color tone is off with the green.
Oh no,
it is. Now and it's not even because it's getting the varnish on it.
Hold on a second.
Why do they just varnish the strip? Why don't they varnish the number? What's wrong with these guys?
What? I like the new labels. I don't care.
Yeah. The older bottlings, the capping matched the strip color very, very well.
But the new
one, at the moment anyway, the one that I've got here, this is like a chalky peppermint green. Yet the capping is still the nice sort of khaki green. Well, so I don't know what's going on there. Get it right,
society. Don't worry. If there's spare caps in the old color, we're still using them.
Oh no! So you're losing this nice khaki color.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I haven't seen any other colors yet.
I talk about consistency, and then this happens.
Jason, I hope that answered your question before. And any call outs for the June outturn? Okay. So Stuart Mountjoy says, aren't we due for some threes? Yeah, you know what? I mean, there's just no threes kicking about at the moment. Look, there's a bigger answer to that, which I won't go into tonight, but it's just sort of, we're seeing, there just isn't a supply from that distillery at the moment.
Last year was the year of the threes. There was a lot.
Year before. We got a few threes last year. The year before, sorry. And we do get periodically. We get a fair few fours through, which is the other question here from Caleb. He asks, any fours? Yeah, we'll see some fours through soon again. And we had a good string of fours. Don't focus too much on the number. Just focus on the tasting notes and the flavor profile. I know it's easier said than done, and code hunting can become a thing. But and your last question was any call outs for the June outturn. Look, I do have malt of the month of June outturn sitting in my office, which is very exciting because it's malt of the month and it's a fun, approachable, affordable, lovely single cask, that one. And that's a sherry cask that was matured, re-racked into a sherry cask again. So it's a sherried whiskey, which will be in June outturn. But that's still like almost 2 weeks away. So
is that taking on the new labeling? The
new label. Yep.
Do people know about that yet?
No, I mean we've sort of hinted at it, as you can see even from the ones you showed up. They're not all color label like that, but there's new labeling coming through.
The naming convention for the barrels, finish versus.
Well, that's a really interesting point. Yeah. So it now says first cask and final cask. So if it has had a finish, if it's had an extra maturation, it shows what the extra maturation is much clearer on the label now. And that's almost a result of better transparency from the SWA being pushed to do it. And I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. And like as we were discussing, if it's under in Scotland anyway, if it's under 3 years, it's a finish. If it's over 3 years, which is the same duration needed for it to be classified a whiskey, therefore it becomes a
extra maturation.
Yeah. Well, I got some questions for you. So I'm going to ask these, and we have answered some of them.
I'm getting interviewed. Okay, here we go.
No. So you can tell me whether you can give the answers to these, and no quick lookups. So these are the top 5 Google Interwebs questions of does Caol Ila ... All right. So the top 5. First one. What does Caol Ila mean? Do you know?
Yes, I know this. It's the sound of Isla.
Well done. Okay.
Yes,
so yes.
Yes.
The sound of Isla. The Gaelic
the narrowest the strips, the ships where the ships went through. Yes. Okay. Yep.
Okay. So the Gaelic word
narrow strip of water. Yes.
Just keep interrupting me, please. Just don't stop.
Okay.
The Gaelic word coal is the distillery appropriately hidden is in a cove near Portiskeag overlooking the Sound of Isla, across which the ferry chugs to nearby island of Jura. So that's the top question. Top question.
That's the top question. Okay.
Second top question.
Okay.
Is Caol Ila peated?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Well, we got that.
And though their core range consists of peated whiskies, Caol Ila is one of the few distilleries on Islay producing both peated and unpeated whiskey, and the distillery occasionally releases unpeated limited edition bottlings. Caol Ila 12-year-old is their entry-level peated single malt expression. Now, is that all correct or not in your assumptions or understanding?
In my understanding, yes, that's all correct.
Yep. I think we spoke about that within about 5 minutes of getting started on this, didn't we?
Yeah. 30 minutes ago. That was good. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Hey, I'm missing one. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Top 4. We're talking top 4 now because I'm missing the question.
We changed to top 4. Okay, ready, go.
Do it. How do you drink Caol Ila?
With a straw, obviously.
With a straw. Well, according to the internet, how you should drink Caol Ila is 1, straight. Number 2, on the rocks. Number 3, with a bit of water. Number 4, with club soda.
You know what? Actually, a Caol Ila with a bit of soda, a lemon wedge, and ice. A Caol Ila would make for a ripper highball. Let's be honest. So I'll endorse that absolutely.
All right, you should be next live or next week. I want you to make a Caol Ila highball with this.
Done.
Yep.
Festival
Done.
highballs. Done.
Yep. Festival highballs. All right.
Okay.
Number 4, because I'm missing number 5. What did I do with number 5?
It printed on 2 pages and you left one on the printer.
How do you pronounce Caol Ila?
Is it A, B? So is this multiple choice?
No, you tell me.
You just say, how do you pronounce Caol Ila?
Hey, these are the top questions on the interwebs, all right?
Although I have heard Scots say it as Caol Ila, like Caol Ila.
Well, okay, so Caol Ila, as we say it, or we've been educated to say it, not Caol Ila. No, but we do hear a lot of Islays, though, don't we? We hear a lot of Islays. Not Caol Ila.
I think as the education level goes up a fair bit, it's we're seeing lots of that. Yeah.
As one might guess, but pronounced Caol Ila. So Cull, Caol Ila with 2 E's, Eela. Caol Ila. Caol Ila. I don't know. My Aussie accent makes it sound pretty harsh, but anyway, those are the top 4 out of the top 5 because I am missing my 5th question. I think
it can't have been a very good question if the 4th one was that.
There is another question in there. I can't remember.
The sound of Islay, the narrow body of water, the sound question. That's a good question.
Yeah, it is. It is, and it's top question when you type in "does Caol Ila ...
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a win's a win. Exactly. It's okay. Well, it's the sound of Islay. It's Caol Ila.
So next time I'm on, I'm going to hit you up with more questions about something like this, and you're not allowed to research.
I didn't research this time. I'm right here.
Good.
This is like gotcha videos.
Interweb questions.
They'll webs them.
This is an interesting side by side. Anyway, we did notice the looking at the colors. The colors are very close.
Yeah, I mean,
OB is a little bit darker.
Yeah, a little bit darker there. Yeah.
Now let me just check something here. Just checking to see as to whether it's going to tell us anything more as to whether it's just ex-bourbon. It doesn't say at all.
No, it never does if it's sold here.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure it does.
There could be some sherry casks in there. We don't know. It certainly comes across as mainly ex-bourbon by a long shot. Because of that fruity sort of element that pops up. What are you doing? You doing a live search, are you?
I just found it. Yeah, it does have coloring.
Does have coloring?
Does.
Well, that wasn't my question. I wasn't even talking about coloring, but that's all right. You brought it up, not me.
Okay.
But the packaging does not say as to whether they're blending different cast styles or anything, which is cool in a way because it's just a good whiskey. Like you can really just appreciate it for what it is.
I meant to mention before your wallpaper is absolutely on point.
The various society photos taken over the years, either at events or bottle shots and things I've been required to partake in.
Yeah, and you've done a marvelous job. Honestly, it's just ripper. There's so many. Like I keep seeing some which are fantastic, and then I see a couple here and there that are. I saw one of my mug next to Walzak, and I was like, "Oh, that photo."
I'm not sure what's. And then a lot of those vintage, old bottles popping up.
For those wondering,
6.3.
Matt Wooler here was integral into the setup of the of our Vault 1682 event last year, and the photos you took were there it is. Oh, I just went past.
Go on.
No, it was the one before that one. It was one of me looking a bit glassy next to Walzak.
24.72.
That was a hard cask to get into.
73.83.
Anniversary cask. Yeah. Some history there.
Yeah, so
very cool.
And of course, my matching
the Society green lighting.
Lights,
I saw that. Yes,
lights as well.
Green
lights on point tonight.
On point, and even the Buffalo Trace in the background as well. There you go.
See, I wasn't going to mention that. Okay.
It's okay. I can mention it.
Can you produce that? If you wouldn't mind producing like a 10-liter bottle of Society bottle, novelty bottle.
I love big format bottles. You know that. Like 4.5 liter Ardbegs and stuff, and just big format bottles. They look cool. They look cool. Do it. They're even better when they've got liquid in them.
Now I haven't. I didn't pair this up with anything tonight. Any food. I didn't actually have any cheese and things. Now I actually find quite often things like just going down to your local shop and getting a like $3 can of smoked oysters goes so well with Society peated whiskies. It just that meaty sort of element that they have with it, smokiness. It actually balances, because quite often you can't put something smoky with something smoky because one will cancel out the other. But there's something about little can of smoked oysters that still works so well with peated whiskies.
I like Dolmards.
Yep.
Dolmards and peated whiskey I reckon go really well. Because there's also a bit of carbohydrate in them and it soaks it up a bit. It's a bit like, that.
It must be the oil or something.
Maybe it's the oiliness of Dolmards, but they're just, the thing about Dolmards as well is that they're either not very good or they're incredible. There's no such thing as average Dolmards.
Are great, but there's a lot of good canned ones out there.
Even if they're canned, that's fine. If they're good, they're good. But there's only like terrible and quite good in Dolmard world. There you go. You can take that one to the bank. Stuart Mountjoy just said I just added smoked oysters to my shopping list. Yeah, you got to do it. Do it.
Yep, $3 for a little can. The thing is, quite often you don't have to buy really expensive ones to get pretty good quality out of them. I mean, quite often I'm buying ones just down at Aldi. Aldi actually do really good ones.
Yeah.
Things like smoked herrings. Smoked herrings work really well, or just the herrings in the can. But it's you can find really nice meaty sardines, ones that aren't extremely salty.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really cool little things there, and even I find quite often barbecuing some octopus works exceptionally well.
Baby octopus, yeah.
Delicious.
Well, there you got some pairings. You got some ideas. We got some whiskey, and I really appreciate talking to you tonight about Caol Ila.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
What a cool distillery and what a cool flavor profile, and one that worth checking out. Andy Davis just said, I have a few, but my go-to is the Distiller's Edition. Yummy manzanilla cask maturation gives the smokiness and some good sweetness. Only wish it were at least 50% ABV. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. These core range whiskeys are great. Some of them, you just always like have that comment like, I wish they were amped up a bit. But sometimes maybe amping them up would show some more of those flaws a bit if the flavors amped up.
They are made for certain styles, certain ways. It's engineered this way.
Yeah, it's engineered
to simply say let's make it a 48% versus a 43% could just destroy the profile.
Yeah, to become overly hot, and that's something we've talked about before. It's where some whiskeys, as I said before, you taste some whiskeys at 70%, and they taste smooth and drinkable and approachable and delicious. You taste some whiskeys at 45%, and they taste hot, tannic, problematic. It's not about the proof. It's about the integration of spirit and oak and all those and how narrow the cut is on the spirit as well in the production end. But that's a discussion for another time.
Yeah, another time.
In the meantime, thank you so much for joining in tonight.
Absolutely.
This has been a blast. We've had lots of people tuning, which is great. And I'll see you all soon. Tuning out for now. Today is Tuesday night. Of course, we're back live tomorrow night. We're live tomorrow night with the Asia Pacific Marketing Manager for Campari, Mark Little, who's joining us for an interview on Wednesday night. Want to have a chat about spirits marketing? Want to learn about what happens in spirits marketing, what it is, how to approach it, what it means, and how to look for things. It's going to be an interesting chat there. And then, of course, Thursday night is with your cellar master, Andrew Durbidge, taking you on a bit of a journey. He's doing a bit of a shorter one on Thursday night. And then the big one on Friday night is, of course, our festival live stream. Time to crack those packs open. I don't even have one in my office anymore. I've only got tasting mat for it. I had to send my one to a member, but that's what we're here for. Thank you so much. Dula says, making me hungry, boys. Good to see you, Dula. Hope you're well, mate. In the meantime, thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you all soon. Big thanks to Matt Wooler from Dramnation for joining us yet again. What is this? The fifth time? Sixth time? Can't remember. Okay. Who knows? Good times. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.